Hello, and once more, welcome back to the cellar. In this episode, delving into the third dimension, not with a cheesy sci-fi, but how I go about making the little board controller mount and use the same technique for all the other little 3D print mounts. Don't be scared, this one isn't too bad. Welcome to Leopard Street. So what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be making a mount for this little piece of strip board. First thing we need to do is get it measured. As you can see, 95mm by 65mm, more or less. We can look at some of the key dimensions on this. The little crosses are where I'm going to drill some holes through. So yeah, so what we need to do is get into some 3D software and make a start. Yeah, so here we are at the desk. This is Blender. This is a rather nice free to download 3D modeling and animation package. Not using anything advanced here, so this is very, very simple. So we start here, little cube, press N brings this little box up at the side. It tells me the size of it. The first thing I want to do is make this the appropriate size for my little circuit board, which is 95mm by 65. Now, that's obviously saying that's in meters. When I output this, that won't be in meters. And what I now need to do is make a little mounting point. So I'm going to start with a cylinder. I'm going to make it 10mm high, and I'm going to leave it at 2.5mm. Now this is for the screw to go into. This is actually going to be the hole. So the next thing I want to do is actually make that a little bit taller. That's going to be the hole. I'm now going to duplicate that. I'm going to make it significantly fatter, but a bit shorter. And this is going to be a post, so I need to knock a hole through the middle of it, which we do coming over here. Add a modifier, Boolean difference, and what this does is basically say subtract one of these objects from the other. So I go into that and then delete. I've now got my mounting hole. This goes all the way through there quite nicely, so I can lift that up by 5, which should put it there nicely so it sticks up a bit. And what I now need to do is position that into the corners. Now this is fairly straightforward, so width-wise is X is 47.5, sticks it on the edge, and there is 32.5. Excuse me. Now, what I now need to do is move that in by an appropriate distance. In this case, I want 7mm. So, what you do there is into that and there. And if I click on the Z up here, this looks straight down from above, and you can see that is where I want that to be. So I duplicate that. Negative. The beauty of doing it this way is the center of the board is at 0, so everything is measured relative to the center, which means when you want things to be in the same distance from the corners, you set one of them up and then play with plus and minus signs, and there we are. Now I could just print that and that would work. However, there's no screw holes in the bottom, which I need to add, so I'm going to make that 20mm wider. That'll do. That gives me space to put screw holes. What I want is to be able to put a screw through this while the circuit board is mounted. Hence why it needs to be a little bit bigger. If you're happy just to screw this to a piece underneath and then screw the board to it, you can have the screws underneath. So next up I need a cylinder. Again, this one can be a little bit taller. This one needs to be 3mm because that's the screw will go through that. And now I'm going to move this by hand to about there, and then change that to 37 to make it nice and even. And yeah, that'll do. So I'm going to duplicate that, minus 37, and these are now going to punch through as holes. So again, back into here, Boolean, yada yada yada, one of those. Apply and delete that, and repeat that for the other one. And as you can see, Blender, if you're trying to create fairly basic things, I mean, this is an incredibly powerful piece of software, but if you're trying to create something fairly basic, it works. Now that that could actually be done as it is. I want to do something a little bit more to it because that uses a lot. So select that, Control A, and then here rotation and scale. And if you look over here, you can see the scale is how much I moved this by. If I go rotation and scale, boom, it now thinks it's that is the unit size. And this is because what I want to do is go into here, select edges. I want to select that edge. So you can see the edges I select are going white. And then orange when I move on to another one. Because I want to put a nice little rounded bit on the corner, so bevel is the tool for that. It's very simple. Click on it down here, 3mm, 10 sections, there are little rounded corners. Go out to object mode, there, looks much better. I also don't need this much of the plastic when I print this, so what I want to do is add another cube. I want to make that a little bit taller. And I'm going to make that, I don't know, 75, take that, 75, that way, and 45 that way. Yeah, it looks about right. And then again, reset the scale, and now I'm going to lift it up a bit. And then I'm going to round the corners of this, which is, again, very, very simple to do. Anybody who's got a 3D printer, I would highly recommend getting hold of Blender and spending a little bit of time learning how to use it. It's not the easiest package to use, but it's far from the worst, especially when you learn just a few basic little tricks like this, and actually then making simple objects becomes quite simple. Again, what I now need to do is sink that back down. As you've probably guessed, what I'm going to do is go into here, Boolean again, difference, that little piece, do that, and then there we are, plot the centre out. That's quite happy. And just because I can, and because this is fairly straightforward, what I'm now going to do is add some text, which I'm going to scale by 5, because that makes it work quite nicely. Over here, properties, text, you go into the geometry bit, and extrude 1 metre. Now, that's easily enough. So now I drag that text down here, drag it over a little bit, and I'm going to make it 4 in height so it sticks up a little. Don't want it sticking out of the bottom, so just do that. I'll probably make it 3, that should do. Set a 0, that work? No, 0.5. There, that's now just sort of flush with the bottom and sticks up a little bit. And this took me ages to work out. How on earth do you edit the text? Turns out it's extremely simple. You just go into edit mode up here. So call this board controller, because that's what I'm going to be mounting on this. Back into object mode. Drag that back down there. Like that. That. Yeah, might actually make that text a little bit bigger. See whether that'll fit. If it does, which it does. That'll do, that works quite nicely. And there you have designed, in a relatively short space of time, a mount for a 3D print. Sorry, a 3D print for a board mount. So what I do is I'm going to save that. There's a whole load of the other bits and pieces I've got in this folder for the model railway stuff. So, board controller. And then I can also go up to here, export STL, and this is the file format for 3D printing. So that goes into there, and that's done. So what I now can do is fire up another piece of software called Cura, and this is the software for 3D printing with an FDM printer. This is one of the ones that prints by extruding like a long thin sausage of plastic. Instead of the resin type ones. For doing something like this, you want one of the FDM printers. I'm using an Ender 3 version 2, which I've had for a couple of years now, and does sterling work printing this sort of thing. This computer is not the world's fastest. In fact, this is 150 quid refurbished PC from Amazon. So yeah, I'm amazed it's even doing this. So here is my build plate. Go into here, select an object, and I want board controller. See, I've got a previous one in there as well, which was something else. That comes in, imports it. I know this side of my print bed works better than this side, but that is literally that. Bring that in, press the slice button, and that says it's going to take an hour and 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I am going to save that to disk, and I'm going to go and print it. And we will be back once that is sorted. Here we are back at the printer. Stand back a bit, it may go into focus. This is on my desk with the layout lurking behind me. So put the memory card in. This thing is currently preheated, so very simply print. A whole load of stuff on here that does other things. Select that, and that will start very shortly. I'll stand here and watch the beginning bit of it just because I want to make sure it works. And once that's done, I'll leave this and we'll come back later. Unfortunately, I don't have a time-lapse mode on this camera, so I'm not going to sit here and leave this thing running for the best part of an hour and a half, 2 hours. Which is how long it's actually going to take. As it starts to extrude, there's a hand wobble there. There we are, now it's printing. And what you'll see come out of the bottom here very shortly, a little grey line starting to appear. Spool at the top is slowly rotating, and this is now going to go here and start drawing a line. First, now this isn't the board I'm doing itself, this is an outline, but that's working. I will be back later. And here we are, an hour and 45 minutes later, roughly, and we have a printed little board. Works quite nicely there. The holes don't quite line up. I'm actually off by 1 row on the way I've drilled these, but for now it'll do, and I can correct that later. So yeah, time to remove this, and then we'll have a closer look. Back on the desk, and this is what the finished product looks like. As you can see, the holes are slightly off. I've got a choice. I can either correct that and print some more, or just accept that and in future drill the holes in a slightly different place, which is probably what I'm going to go with. But that's it. It's not taking very long to do this. Say about an hour and 40 minutes or so to print it. And you saw how long it took to come up with the design. So it's not a particularly long process. And the best bit is obviously the printer. You can leave it going while we're doing it. But yeah, there we go. And thanks for watching. As always, be back soon in the future. Any comments welcome, likes, subscriptions, upticks, all the usual YouTube stuff. And I will see you all next week. Thank you very much.